People often ask me what keeps me awake at night. And I know just thinking about that, many of you are already thinking, because I run a zoo, you're starting to think how bad that can go, right? And you're all thinking about lions and tigers, big scary animals. Before this, I worked in a bank. No one ever asked me what kept me awake at night. Because you know, right? You know what keeps bankers awake at night. Money. At that stage, I lived fairly near to a zoo. And so when I was lying awake at night thinking about money, I could hear lions roaring. And I liked that. I liked being safe in my bed at night, listening to lions roar. I kind of liked the thought that while I was just thinking about your money, someone else was thinking about lions. That amused me. And then I got the job at the zoo. And when I lie awake at night and I could hear the lions roar, it didn't amuse me anymore. Because you know that thing your brain does in the middle of the night, this crazy thing where it takes a small problem and it just makes it enormous? Okay, when you're lying awake at night listening to lions roar as the CEO of a zoo, you have an enormous range of things to worry about. Like, why is it so loud? And is that coming from the right direction? These days, I work for zoos that are committed to conservation, that are committed to saving species. And different animals keep me awake at night. Because when I think of the destruction that we're bringing to the planet and the impact that that is having on so many species, I worry about different things. I worry at night that one day I'll be holding a Tasmanian devil in my hands. And he'll be old. His fur will be gray, patches might be missing. His nose will be dull and cracked. And the reason I'll be there is because we have to make a decision. We have to decide to euthanize this Tasmanian devil. And the reason that I will be involved is that although he's old and it's time to euthanize him, the reason I would be involved as the CEO of a zoo is because it just might be the last Tasmanian devil on the planet. And after I've taken that decision, they won't exist anymore. You see, Tasmanian devils are in trouble. In 1996, we recognized the appearance of what's called the devil facial tumor. It's a debilitating tumor that occurs in the faces of devils. Within 4 to 6 months, the tumors are so bad they can no longer eat, and they die of starvation. When we first saw this disease, we recognized how urgent the problem was, and a rescue was put in place, and the plan had 3 legs to it. The first leg was we would try and quarantine parts of Tasmania so we could stop the spread of the disease. The second was that we would try and cure the disease. And the third was we would create another population of disease-free devils. So in the terrible circumstance that we actually lose the population in the wild, we would have something to fall back on. Well, where are we now? First of all, we haven't been able to stop the spread. We now know the disease is prevalent right across Tasmania. The second problem is, despite the best efforts of some of the most brilliant young scientists in this country, we can't stop the spread of the disease. We can't cure the disease. You see, what we now know is that those tumors are caused by a very aggressive, contagious cancer. Think of that for a minute. A contagious cancer. I mean, many of our lives have been touched by cancer. It's a debilitating disease. But imagine that it was contagious and that your very lifestyle allowed the transmission from one person to the next. Because you see, their lifestyles are interesting. They're obnoxious, feisty little guys. They live on carrion, dead animals, and they bite each other at every opportunity. They bite when they bump into each other, they bite when they have sex, they bite all the time. And what we now understand is that a healthy devil will come across a sick devil, they'll see that festering tumor, and they bite right into the middle of it. And they then pick up those cancerous cells into their mouths, and that transmits the disease from one animal to the next. So we're not going to solve it. We're not going to cure a very aggressive, changing, contagious cancer. And so the third plan is now the first plan, that we will keep a population of Tasmanian devils disease-free so that we can repopulate in the event that we lose them. And the scientists are now projecting that as soon as 2025, we could lose all the white devils in Tasmania. So 22 zoos around Australia are working to hold an assurance population. And we're absolutely committed to this cause. It's going to be hard work. We need to keep a population that is sufficiently big to retain genetic diversity and retain behavioral diversity as well. And we're quite excited that we can do that. It won't be easy. We'll need help. At Healesville Sanctuary, we hold 80 Tasmanian devils, and by the end of breeding season, we can have as many as 120. And we've learned a lot in the years we've been involved in this program about these amazing creatures. We had quite a fright in 2009 when the bushfires got within 2 kilometers of Healesville Sanctuary. And now many of you think you have a tough job, but imagine being the keepers who, after 5 days of extreme temperatures, at the beginning of breeding season, with a fire approaching, had to go in and collect up the Tasmanian devils. They managed to do that. We brought them down to Melbourne Zoo. We kept them here for 2 nights until the fire front had passed, and we took them back to Healesville Sanctuary. We were very worried that interrupting the beginning of the breeding season would be problematic, but all the devils came back and fell pregnant. We had the best breeding season ever, just proving that Melbourne is the most romantic city in the world. If it was just devils, I possibly wouldn't lose a lot of sleep. But there's lots of other animals that are in trouble. What you just listened to there is the sound of a Christmas Island pipistrel. This little bat is found only on Christmas Island. The problem for this bat was an invasive pest introduced by humans onto Christmas Island called crazy yellow ants. Crazy yellow ants invade the roost space of these bats. The bats are territorial. They come back to the same spot every night. The ants literally just eat them alive. In 2009, we knew the population was in trouble. Scientists had little graphs. They'd been plotting the population demise, and if you drew the line through that graph, you would see that the population would go extinct towards the end of 2009. We went up in a joint mission, 3 zoos, Perth, Taronga, and ourselves went up there to try and save this bat. We put measuring devices right across the known habitat of this little bat. And we recorded 1 male bat flying for 3 days. You just listen to that male bat flying. We recorded him for 3 days, and we never recorded him again. What you just listened to is an extinction event. You just heard a recording from the 26th of August 2009, the last day this bat ever flew. We came back from that experience and said, that's terrible. We don't want to be who you call to record extinctions. And so we made a promise. We promised that no Victorian terrestrial vertebrate species will go extinct on our watch. We will not let that happen. Victorian, you all get, it's our state. Terrestrial, land-based vertebrates have backbones. We are not guaranteeing that we can save every fish and every insect. The fish is not our expertise, and the insects, we just don't know how dire the situation is. But we are committed that no Victorian terrestrial vertebrate species will go extinct on our watch. Now you're getting that's quite a mouthful. When you say it, you have to be quite careful. And when we were talking this through with our staff, one of them became quite tongue-tied and said that our commitment is that no extraterrestrial vertebrates. So we did widen our search. If anyone finds an extraterrestrial, call us, Zoos Victoria. We're the ones you want to call. So then you say, well, what does that mean? How many species are we talking about here in Victoria? What does that mean? Our scientists pulled out all those little maps, all those little graphs, and they came back with these guys. 16 species here in Victoria that if we do nothing will disappear in the next 5 to 10 years. 16 species in one place in one country. Imagine the impact of that across the world. Now we're working with many of these species. We're working with recovery programs, but we also know we can't do it on our own. We need a lot of help if we're going to save these 16 species. And so we're working with Parks Victoria. We're working with the Department of Sustainability and Environment. We're working with other NGOs. But we still can't do it on our own. We need your help as well. We need you all to make a commitment to help us. Because together we can turn this around. But as I say, I need your help. And there's something that I'll bet none of you have lain awake at night thinking about. That if you do, you could make a difference. And that is what toilet paper you use. Because the simple fact is, here in Victoria, we flush 6 million trees down the toilet every year. 6 million trees that we could leave behind for wildlife if we weren't flushing it down the toilet. And so a simple thing you can all do is take the decision to switch to toilet paper made from recycled paper. We used to call it recycled toilet paper, but nobody wants to recycle the toilet paper, okay? So it's toilet paper made from recycled paper. And you're gonna say, oh, but it's more expensive. It's not more expensive. And then you'll say, oh, but it's scritchy. It's not. You won't notice the difference. The technological advances in toilet paper are amazing. So make the switch, make the commitment today to switch to toilet paper made from recycled paper and leave some trees behind for the animals. But you're then going to say, well, why should I? What have those 16 little species ever done for us? Why should I care? And I'm going to give you 4 reasons today why you should care. The first one is these animals are amazing. This is a bawbaw frog. Now, we try to take a picture from every angle. This is as good as it gets. They're not the most charismatic, beautiful animals, but they are truly amazing. The bawbaw frog has a couple of life characteristics that nobody else has. First of all, he doesn't hop. He also, only the males call, and only the males call for 3 weeks a year. So you have to be in the right spot if you're a girl to know where the males are at the right time to actually get this together. If you do get it together, you then lay an egg mass, and the tadpoles live out their whole life as tadpoles in the egg mass. They don't get out into a pond or anything. They all live in the egg mass. And then they become a little frog. And they become a frog that's 5 millimeters big. Okay, tiny, a little frog. And this little frog has the most amazing hunting technique you've ever come across. What this little tiny 5 millimeter big frog does is it lies on its back in the mud, pretending to be dead, and it waits. And at some point, a very, very tiny insect, small enough to walk over the hand of a 5 millimeter frog, will walk over the hand, and then the frog puts it in its mouth. And we're wondering why it's in trouble. The second reason why you should care about these little animals is not only they're amazing, but this guy, this little frog, lives in our water catchment. We don't live on some other planet to all these other creatures. We live on the same planet. And what we do to the environment that impacts them will impact us. And if there's something in the water, pollution, something we're doing that's killing the really tiny little things, or killing the really tiny little frogs, and it's in the water we drink, shouldn't we care about that? Shouldn't that make us wonder? The third reason is a simple reason. We made this mess. We teach kids, if you make a mess, clean it up. What example are we giving when we made this mess and we don't clean it up? We should clean up this mess, because the rate of species extinction that we're going to see is not natural, it's not inevitable. It is a man-made process. We are driving animals to extinction. The exciting thing is we can change that. We can intervene and we can stop that process. The final reason, I hope, is the one that will stay with you the longest. And the fourth reason why we should save these species, why you should care, is the same reason that you all lie awake at night. You lie awake at night because you want the future to be better than the present. You want tomorrow to be better than today. That's what keeps you up in the middle of the night. And the reason your brain makes these problems enormous is so that you have resilience tomorrow. When you wake up, you have the resilience to deal with your problems. We want the future to be better than the present. And it's inconceivable that a future that is better than the present is a future that doesn't have lions or gorillas or little frogs. It is inconceivable that a future that is better than this present is one in which the oceans are devoid of whales haunting love songs, and our children never get to see wild dolphins jumping over waves and spiraling in the sun. When I lie awake at night, I don't always worry. Sometimes I dream. I dream that one day I'll be holding a Tasmanian devil, and this one will be jet black, and his nose will be so shiny you can see your reflection in it. And I'll be able to put him down and release him. And that devil will run off into a forest full of trees we didn't cut down to make toilet paper. And he won't stop. He won't look back, and he won't thank me. But I will sleep so well, knowing that I live in a world where the future includes Tasmanian devils. Thank you.